December 27th, 2016. Feast of St. John, Apostle and Evangelist.
A reading from the first letter of St. John. Beloved, what was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we looked upon and touched with our hands, concerns the word of life. For the life was made visible. We have seen it and testified to it, and proclaimed to you the eternal life that was with the Father and was made visible to us. What we have seen and heard, we proclaim now to you, so that you too may have fellowship with us. For our fellowship is with the Father and with His Son, Jesus Christ. We are writing this so that our joy may be complete. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, Rejoice in the Lord, you just. The Lord is King, let the earth rejoice, let the many isles be glad. Clouds and darkness are around him. Justice and judgment are the foundation of his throne. Rejoice in the Lord, you just. The mountains melt like wax before the Lord of all the earth. The heavens proclaim his justice, and all peoples see his glory. Rejoice in the Lord, you just. Light dawns for the just, and gladness for the upright of heart. Be glad in the Lord, you just, and give thanks to his holy name. Rejoice in the Lord, you just.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. On the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene ran and went to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved and told them, They have taken the Lord from the tomb, and we do not know where they put him. So Peter and the other disciple went out and came to the tomb. They both ran, but the other disciple ran faster than Peter and arrived at the tomb first. He bent down and saw the burial cloths there, but did not go in. When Simon Peter arrived after him, he went into the tomb and saw the burial cloths there, and the cloth that had covered his head, not with the burial cloths, but rolled up in a separate place. Then the other disciple also went in, the one who had arrived at the tomb first, and he saw and believed. The Gospel of the Lord.
December 27th, the Feast of St. John the Apostle. The first reading comes from 1 John 1:1-4. The beginning of the first letter of John is patterned after the beginning of the Gospel, and that was done on purpose. We hear it, Beloved, what was in the beginning? Remember, in the Gospel, we hear in the beginning was the Word. What we've heard, what we've seen with our own eyes. Whereas the prologue of John's Gospel emphasized the eternal nature of wisdom, which eventually became incarnate. This letter, which is more of a treatise than a letter, this one emphasizes the fact that the Word became flesh. In the prologue of John's Gospel, we don't hear that till verse 14 of the prologue. Here we hear it right from the beginning. We saw him with our own eyes, touched him with our hands. Why? Because the author of this letter is fighting a heresy within the church, the heresy of Docetism, that denied that God could ever take on flesh, and especially that God, in the person of Jesus, could die on the cross. They saw that as distasteful because they followed Greek philosophy, which saw the spiritual world as so much more superior than the material world. And so they denied the incarnation and the crucifixion. This letter emphasizes both of those, the fact that Jesus is the Christ. And in this letter, when they say Jesus, they mean Jesus incarnate, the Christ, the Messiah, the one who died on the cross, and also the eternal Word. The Gospel is from John 20, 1a and 2-8. Mary Magdalene runs and tells Simon Peter and the other disciple whom Jesus loved, we call that disciple John, that Jesus is not in the tomb. So they both run to the tomb, and the beloved arrives first. Why? Because he's younger? No, Leonardo da Vinci tells us that in his depiction of the Last Supper. Why does he arrive at the tomb first? Because he's in love, and love impels him to go to that tomb. However, he waits at the entrance of the tomb for Simon Peter, because love bows to authority. Simon Peter enters and sees. The beloved enters, sees, and believes. So notice that in this gospel there's a contrast between Simon Peter, who's good, he tries to do what God called him to, tries to follow Jesus, and the beloved disciple, who falls head over heels in love with Jesus. And he's the model of what we should be as Christians. Christians, ideally, are people who are in love with God. That the first thought of the day is of God, the last thought of the day is of God. And all throughout the day, they see things that remind them of the beloved. A color, a taste, a beautiful panorama from a mountainside, a tree, a child smiling. All these things remind us of the goodness of God, because we're head over heels in love. And may God bless us.